Well, hello and welcome back on board Sovereign Grace for another Pastor's Day Off video. In fact, actually, this is my first Pastor's Day Off, or my first day off since our 2-week voyage up onto the Northern Broads. And I'm back on board today for a couple of reasons. Firstly, to clear off some of the remaining bits and pieces that we weren't able to take home at the end of last week, but also to start looking at a couple of jobs that need to be done, that highlighted themselves as needing to be done whilst we were away. And the first of them is a simple one but an annoying one, and it comes because of something that I foolishly did, and that is to replace, if you can just see there, replace that line at the front of the boat. I've got to take it off, take it home and measure it. That line is there actually for the purpose of raising and lowering the mast, and as I was putting the mast back up at the end of our voyage, not really paying attention fully to what I was doing, I ended up nicking a piece out of the middle of that line underneath the foot of the mast, and weakening the line, which is very serious because it is a major safety issue. I don't want the mast suddenly coming crashing down on the boat because the line's split. It's a simple thing to solve. Sadly not an inexpensive thing to solve, but you learn your lessons often the hard way. So the first thing I've got to do is take that off, take it home and measure up the line, make sure I've got the measurements right so that I can order and replace it with a new line. But the other issue that we were finding that we do need to solve, and I don't really fully know how I'm going to solve it, is actually perhaps another safety issue. And it's what we can actually do to this boat to make it easier for my wife and I to get on and off it, and especially when it comes to mooring. Well, let me explain what the problem is. Well, this is the problem. As with a lot of sailboats, many sailboats, running down the side of the boat here, we've got these safety lines, and as they suggest, they are there for a purpose, and rightly so. If you're sailing and you're perhaps heeling over, they are there certainly if you lose your footing, and there to guard you as much as they can do to go overboard. But for us, for my wife and I, with a little bit of a mobility issue, they actually become a bit of a hindrance to us getting on and off the boat, and especially when it comes to mooring. So what do we do? What is the solution? Well, one solution perhaps is to consider whether this is the right boat for us or not. There are other boats that are a bit easier for us to get on and off, but in every other way this boat is absolutely perfect. It's well built, it's solid, there's nothing really wrong with it in that regard. It doesn't leak, there's no water in the bilges ever. The engine is very good. In fact, the engine is very economical. On our whole 2 weeks of cruising, and we did just cruise because we were on holiday and we were being a bit lazy, but in our whole 2 weeks of cruising, I only actually used 20 litres of diesel, bearing in mind that we crossed Braden twice. That's not bad going. Now, to replace this boat with an equivalent motor cruiser, or a cruiser of equivalent quality, would cost us an awful lot more. So that's perhaps not an investment that I want to make yet, although maybe in time we will. So what is the solution? Well, I've been on a couple of the forums, and I've been asking for wisdom from people, and certainly I've had a lot of wisdom in response. Some people have said, well, why don't you work out a way of having a removable section? And certainly that is a possibility, and something that I will work on. Others have said, well, if you don't need them on the Broads so much, as plenty of other sailboats on the Broads don't seem to have them at all, then maybe you're just as well taking them off and not having them at all. But of course, we have to remember that the Broads is a place still that you have to treat with respect. Certainly on the southern Broads and lower down on the northern Broads, it is very tidal, and if you do go overboard, you can find yourself in a lot of serious trouble. So somehow I've got to come to some sort of compromise, and so this is what I'm going to be working on. It might take more than one video to do this, or more than one day to do this, although I'll put it into one video, but yeah, follow me as I try and solve this problem, and we'll see what we can come up with. And again, maybe you've got some feedback of your own that you'd like to give. The good thing here is that I've got time on my hands. There's no need to rush. I can come up with a solution, and I think I can even experiment. So possibly the first thing that I'm going to do is to take these lines off altogether, and maybe just take them home and try and measure up different things to perhaps come up with different solutions. But follow the journey. It's not going to be a journey of miles, it's going to be a journey of mind and trial and error, and hopefully we'll be able to solve the problem. And of course, in the meantime, we'll get out on the boat as soon as we can and film a bit more of the Norfolk Broads. Well, there we are. That's the first little job done, at least as far as it can be for the moment. I've removed the line from the block and tackle. I've taken plenty of photographs to make sure I get it back in the right way, to make sure that it's safe. But for now, I need to take that home, I need to measure it, and I need to order myself a new line to replace it. Well, there we are. Some would say that this is a very foolish move, but as you can see, I've taken the safety lines off the side, but actually that was not necessarily out of the plan anyway, because I have for a while been mindful that if I was going to keep them, they needed to be replaced anyway. So at least that's half the job done, and certainly by doing this doesn't mean that they are not going to be reinstated at some point. Yeah, I'm looking at solutions, but I don't know if one might have even presented itself. As you can see, when I was taking the safety lines off, I had a bit of a thought, and I had a bit of spare rope on the boat just to see whether this would work. And as you can see, what I've done for the moment is I've just simply set up a safety line that covers just the cockpit, and that may actually be a workable solution, in that as with a lot of sailboats nowadays, all our control lines go back to the cockpit, so that is where we are pretty much all the time, and everything else is pretty much done once we've moored up at a quayside. So perhaps that's a solution. I need to work on it a little bit. It's a bit untidy for the moment, but it might actually create some sort of solution, at least in the short term. But I'm going to be working on this. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to call this project video number 1, so that I can get it online and start to get some feedback on it, and then over the next few weeks, I'll see, maybe with your suggestions, how I might be able to come up with a better workable solution. But in the meantime, I've done all the jobs I've needed to do. I took the line off the front of the boat, which I will now go and get measured up. I'm going to take those safety lines and coil them up a bit better, take them home and measure them up, and see if there's perhaps a better way of solving this. But in the meantime, that's all the jobs done, and thank you for joining me on this video. It's a bit different to the others, but again, take time for yourself, and join me soon on Pastor's Day Off. Bye for now.